Okay, updates for my Dromida DB4.18. And sorry, I'm looking in this video here. This is a 1/18th scale. Back there is a 1/5 scale. But they both look the same size a minute. Watch. They just happen to be the right distance away. It makes it look like they're the same size. But anyway, I got my hot racing A-arms in the mail. So I'll be putting those on here. And I also have the front supports for the A-arms that I ordered. They're not here yet, so I'm not going to change these until I get those. But what I'm here to show you is I noticed that when I do jumps and I nosedive, it's taking a beating on this front end. And the screws were starting to strip out of the plastic on the transmission casing. So what I did for that was I drilled holes all the way through, then I put a nut on the top. So that way I sandwiched the gearbox. What they did was on the bottom they have screws coming up, and then on the top they got screws coming down, and it holds the gearbox together. Well, those are starting to strip and it's pulling apart. So now I have it sandwiched between the nut and a screw, and it's squeezing it together. But I decided to try to find a skid plate for this, so I couldn't find a skid plate. So I had to make a skid plate, and that's what I did today. I set the frame of the buggy onto a piece of aluminum, and I drew it out, and then I cut it. And this is what I come up with. There's my aluminum skid plate. Now the buggy, the screws, you can see the two screws on the back here, the heads of them. There's one there and then there's one there. Those go all the way straight up through the gear. I don't know if you call it a transmission, but the rear front drive case in the back. So I had to make a little step in the aluminum here for the heads of the screws, because normally they're flush. So this will protect those from getting beat up. So there's my skid plate that I come up with. Counterbored the holes, or countersunk the holes, put some stainless steel screws in, made sure I was clear on the other side. You got to find some spots that are clear so you can bolt this on, make sure it doesn't affect the battery. If you see here, I have this little tiny screw, because this is where my battery is right here. But I had clearance over here for a small screw. On this side, I had clearance for a big one. So that's what I come up with. I'll get my A-arms on and my front pin supports. I have those coming in aluminum. And then we'll be upgraded completely. I also put the speed kit in this. One thing, I had some wires that the colors were wrong on the motor. I figured that out though. So when I went forward, I went backward. Even when you flipped it from normal to on your remote, I couldn't get full speed out of it, but I could get full speed on reverse. It went really fast in reverse, so that's how I knew the wires were off. So I got those switched over on the speed kit, and they tell you to mount the receiver in the middle up here. In the SC, you can do that because you have the cab of the truck right there. In the buggy, you got to mount it all the way in the back because it'll hit, because you have the compartment here with the guy sitting in there. So that was kind of, you know, if you're following the instructions and you're putting it in the buggy, you cannot mount it in the middle. Like they say, mount it in the back. But the speed kit, you got a little more control as far as creeping speed. With the stock electronics in it were kind of fast. When you would pull the trigger to try to go slow, it would go pretty fast and you couldn't slow it down. But it's more manageable with the speed kit. And I'm playing around in my basement with this, doing jumps on these ramps, and I'm pretty much beating this thing up. It's taking a toll on it. Screws are stripping into plastic, and I haven't actually broken anything yet. Major. It's mostly screws coming loose and things like that. But anyway, that's what I have for my skid plate now, and I got my springs adjusted all the way. And the stock springs on the aluminum shocks have more coils, but they're a little bit weaker than the original plastic springs. So I put those on to give me a little more height, because I'm I'm getting a little more weight on this thing having the aluminum. So this thing is pretty good now as far as, well, they're bottomed out. But they're going to do that. That's what they're made for. That's what I got the skid plate on. So now I got the aluminum protection and I'm ready to rock and roll. Bye, 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 bye.